Hi all, welcome back to another lecture of DBMS. And in this lecture, we will see what are the different types of database users along with their roles in the DBMS. Then we will see what is the role of database administrator, end users, application programmers, system analyst, and data scientist and analyst. So these are the different database users. So we will learn about them and what are their roles in the DBMS. So let's begin with the very first topic, which is types of database users and their roles. So database user can be categorized into several groups, and each group have their own way of interacting with database with their different roles and tasks. Some of the user task is to design application, whereas some takes care of the performance, security, data analyst, and the system management. So very first is database administrator. So database administrator is basically responsible for the performance, security, and backup. Second is end users. So end user is basically responsible for accessing the data for everyday task like querying, reporting, transaction processing via application. So end users like us query the data to get the actual data, whatever is there for manipulation and for processing. Then comes the application programmers, and they are responsible to write the code that interact with the database, embedding SQL queries and handling data operations within applications. So application programmers are responsible to write the embedded code so that when user write the SQL query, that embedded code should understand the SQL query and do the manipulation and processing what it is supposed to do. Next is system analyst, and they are basically responsible for business needs and design database structure to meet the system requirements. And last is data scientist and analyst, and basically they are responsible to execute advanced queries and analyze data for insights reporting and business making decisions. So data scientists are responsible to get the data, but for to make the best decisions, like for example in case of train routes, if they are available, right? So on the peak of on high peak time when the tracks are less available, but at that time train needs to pass at the same time, then on that time which train needs to opt for that route and which train needs to wait. So all these important decision makings will be done by this data scientist and analyst in those DBMS part. So let's try to learn one by one about their roles with the example. The very first is the role of database administrator, and basically they are responsible for overall management, maintenance, and security of the database. So they manage, maintain, and security the database system. Their key responsibility include ensuring the database is always available. So database should always be available, and they also optimize performance and manage the user access and all the permission security. So all these things are, for these things only database administrator is responsible. So in case of IRCTC, let's see, the DBA would maintain first data integrity. So basically they ensure that train ID in the booking table corresponds accurately to the train ID. So in this train table, they have one column called train ID, and similarly in bookings table also they have the train ID. So this train ID and this train ID should be accurate. So data integrity should be there. It's not like this 101 should represent this 102 here, right? And so on. Second is performance optimization. So DBA would index the date and train ID column to ensure faster query. See, we know that if we use the indexing, then fetching out the data will be faster. So in this case, we can index the date section together with the train ID section so that fetching of the data from data entry from the database will be faster. Next is backup and recovery, and obviously DBA, database administrator, would schedule regular backups to prevent data loss. So this is the responsibility of DBA, to schedule the backups on a regular basis so that they should not miss any data, real-time data, especially in the booking system, right? Now second is a role of the end user. So end user, which is us, individual, we interact with the database for our daily task. Like we interact with database to book tickets, to check the train availability, right? So we basically typically use an application interface to access the data without needing to understand how the data or data inside the database looks like and how is the structure. We just interact with the front part, right? And interact with the first part to fetch the data and to check the availability of the seats, or if in case we want to book, we just need to book the seats and get our tickets, right? So in that case, user don't need to understand how the data has been structured and stored in the physical database. So in the IRCTC database, end users should be responsible for view train details. So users can query to see train schedules, availability and routes based on their travel plan. So they just select the destination, arrival to destination part, and they will select the date part. According to that, they will query and get the available number of trains with that particular route. Second is search for train. So user can search for specific train based on the source and destination also similar, and cancel booking. So if let's suppose the user has already booked the train and they want to cancel it, so with the PNR number they can check the booking status and then they can cancel the ticket as per their needs. So those were the few things with what need the end user interact with the front end part. Now another is application programmer. So basically they are responsible for developing the software application. So application programmer are responsible to develop the application which will communicate with the database and process the query. So application programmer basically write the code that enable end users to access, manipulate data without directly interacting with the database system. Their main role is to embed SQL queries. So basically application program write code to embed the queries, design user interface and ensure seamless communication between the application and the database. So to understand it more clearly, here is a train table and booking table where train ID section like column is common in both the things, right? So now if in the IRCTC database, application programmers should develop search functions. So application programmer is responsible to develop search function so that users can search the trains from source to destination or for particular date. They would also handle data queries. So they retrieve the information to present the data to users in a readable format. So application programmer should write the code, embedded code, so that when user wants to retrieve the data, there should be some data structure present which will store the data and represent the data to the user. So basically it should handle whatever the queries has been sent from the end users. Next is PNR and status checking. So they are responsible to develop such functionalities so that when user want to check the booking status, they can see it. So basically when we open a IRCTC application or website, whatever page when we click on some button to check the INR number, to book the table, to book the basically train, to cancel the train. So whenever we are having those options, so those options are built by the developer, right? So basically that developer, like how in software field we call them as a developer, here we will call them as an application programmer, right? So that those were the few roles of the application programmer in database management system. Next is system analyst. So basically they bridge the gap between business requirement and technical implementation. So system analysts are responsible. They get the requirement of how our client want the database to look like. Client means who want the database to be built for their use. They want to sell it, not the end user I'm talking about. So here they will give the business requirement to the system analyst, and now this is the responsibility of system analyst, like how they will implement the technical implementation with so that the business requirement and technical implement should be matching. So they analyze the need of the users and translate them in system specifications that application programmers and DBA can work with. So system analyst basically decides what type of things and how the database should be designed, and according to that, application programmer and DBA basically are responsible to cooperate with the system analyst and design the database in such a way. So they ensure that the system design meets user requirement. So whatever the requirement of the user, the system design should meet the user requirement, optimize performance and align with business goal. So they are basically responsible for designing data flow. So they create the flow diagram and process specifications, to define how booking data is captured and stored. So basically, when end user wants to fetch details of train for a particular source to destination address. Okay, so first, how we want to see, is it like we want to see the train number first, then train name first, then timing first, or else first we want to see train name, then number of hours, right? Number of hours that train will take, then train number. Like how the data should look like, that will be decided by the system analyst. Okay, an application programmer is responsible to implement those logical thinking into the actual programming. And they are also responsible to optimize data design, basically evaluate design to ensure that it is structured efficiently to support queries like viewing all trains based on the conditions. And next is define data requirement. So basically they ensure structure supports various use cases and attributes. So this it's not like they have created one page that is only applicable for one type of data fetching. No, it should be reusable, like how we use a reusable code. So they also ensure that the structure supports various use cases and attributes. So here, if you can see the train table, basically this is a data like how these tables will be stored in the database system. But when user want to see some data, or like let's suppose they want to cancel the page, then how the UI should look like, system analyst will decide, and based on the user requirements, and then the application programmer and DBA will align with them and get the things done in the real time environment. Next is data scientist and analyst. So basically the main job, obviously. So here they use the data stored in the database first, and they generate insights and perform analysis and also support decision making. How? Basically they extract, clean and analyze data using statistical and machine learning techniques. But why they are using these statistical techniques and machine learning? Basically to derive valuable insights for improving business process. Let's see how. So here they are responsible to analyze train routes and usage, to analyze popularity of train routes. So for some routes, let's suppose Kota to Patna, if you will see, that route is very busy, right? Like because of that, Kota is very much famous for IITians to study. So after 10th or after 12th, student goes there, and there is lot of traffic there. So such route where number of users requesting for the train route is too messy. So they analyze the train routes based on the popularity of train and the usage. And then obviously because of the route is less and the number of trains requesting for the route is more. So there needs the main concern, like how we are managing the traffic there, right? So basically they optimize scheduling. So they recommend optimal train schedules, identify peak travel times, basically when the traffic will be high, and enable railway to adjust timing, increase train frequency, like how some trains might get delayed, and to let the other priority trains to go, and like how the decision will be made. Data scientists and analysts are responsible to do. Next is demand forecasting. So for specific trains and routes to predict which are likely to be booked and suggest pricing accordingly. So also obviously when some trains are high in demand, so their price will be comparatively higher than the trains which having, or the routes which are having the lower demands. So all these things for making good profit and for better utilization, data scientists and analysts have their role in this part. And yeah, this is also very important. So these were the few roles of different users in the database management system, and each role is very much important in the database management system. I hope you learned. I tried my best to make you understand, and that was all about the whole lecture. Let's meet in another lecture. Till then, keep learning, take care of yourself and your family too.